welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the Code Monkey Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Giese, and with me, as always, is the sensational, once-in-a-lifetime spectacle, Mr. Alex Bragdon. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm a spectacle. It means I can help people see better.
Wow. Well, there you go.
That's my job as a spectacle. But there's only one
a lot of work,
unfortunately.
I imagine LASIK is probably cutting into your bottom line lately.
Yeah. But luckily, that's sort of a niche market. A lot of people are actually scared of having high-powered lasers pointed into their eyes.
That seems weird to me.
Unsurprisingly.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's lucky for me that they are, because that phobia is really keeping my industry alive.
I can imagine. How is your vision, out of curiosity?
So my vision is so good, I don't know how good it is, because every time they've tested it, they're like, okay, that's enough, just stop.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Is there like a teacher's pet for oculists?
Well, I mean, I've never been to a vision specialist because my primary doctor has never recommended me, because my vision has always been like, okay, good enough, just stop.
Okay.
So I don't really know how good it is. I think it was like, I've been told the number 2012, meaning what regular people have to be at 12 feet to see.
So you can see past the apocalypse.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I see. I was never worried about the Mayan apocalypse because I could see into the future using my super awesome vision. So yeah, what regular people, what I shouldn't say regular, what average people have to see, people with 20/20 vision have to be at 12 feet away to see. I can see from 20 feet.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what 20/20 means, is that, for the average person at 20 feet, you can see.
Okay, so now here's a question about that. So you know how the IQ standard varies, right? We raised the barrier for basically, if you were a genius 100 years ago, you're an idiot now.
Yeah.
So Ben Franklin, moron. Einstein, completely incompetent. Like, basically, they'd all be in loony bins. But no, we raise the standard because on average people are getting more intelligent. Did you think the same holds true for eyesight? Because we are developing pretty severe nearsightedness as a species.
Really?
Yes.
The incidence of nearsightedness have gone up?
At least that's what I'm given to understand. That just because we don't spend a lot of time on the savannah looking for gazelles to chase down, that over time, I can't remember, I should probably have a source for that, but no, I'm just going to say it as though I had done the research myself and come to that conclusion, that, yeah, basically because we spend so much time indoors, and particularly now on screens, it's sort of accelerating, but I believe over the past several hundred years, we've become more and more nearsighted.
Huh. I mean, that makes sense, obviously, but yeah, without studies, I don't know if I believe you.
Well, fair enough.
You're just making it up. I bet you're just making.
Speaking of additional eyesight stuff that I'm going to make up as well, eyes don't work in space very good. Or rather, if you go to space, your eyes just stop. Actually, that's how we could normalize you. We could bring your vision back down to average.
Why would you want to do that?
You could go to space.
Sure,
well, you get to go to space, though, in the process. So, swings and roundabouts.
Like, my mom was the same way. She said I probably got her eyes, and that...
Well, you should give them back.
She has to wear...
That seems irresponsible.
Yes. But now she has to wear reading glasses. Like, it just... Eyes deteriorate as you get older. Right. So, I'm only special now, and that even without going to space, I will eventually normalize into the average.
That the space thing is one where I do sort of wonder, because we fixed kind of the bone density problem, right? Because now they have the cool weight machine.
Fixed? I mean, if you consider having to work out 6 hours a day, fixed.
Well, yeah. I mean, problem solved. I mean, at least it's a solved problem. Whereas, if we're looking at going to Mars, though, the thing in particular about the astronauts' eyes is that they don't get better when they come back. That basically they get up there, the eyes deform, they develop less mass on the back of the retina. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's definitely a lack of gravity.
But yeah, basically when they come back, generally the eyesight doesn't revert to normal anymore. That it is largely just like, yeah, you're just bad at seeing things now.
I feel really bad for Scott Kelly now.
Well, yeah, every photo you see him now, he's got spectacles on. You're like, oh, man. So, I guess...
I mean, at least you don't go blind, but man, that kind of sucks.
Well, especially, you're up, like, you have the best view.
And then it's just too good a view. Your eyes just can't handle it.
There's a cupola module that is just devoted to like, hey, let's look at all of the awesome stuff. But you're like, nah, it's too far away. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Man, I really want VR of the cupola module.
Oh, yeah.
Can we send like 12K cameras up and get like VR footage from the cupola module, please?
That would be amazing.
I agree, because then you could look out the cupola module without having to wear spectacles after.
Well, I also don't know if I've seen a couple of ISS videos where they do have spectacles. I don't know if they do contact lenses. I would imagine you probably don't, just because if stuff goes wrong, you don't want to be dealing with eye infections and stuff in space. But I also have, maybe we just need to invent a space LASIK. Splasik, exactly.
A splasik. You get back. We could use the high energy like particles that build up on the spacecraft as you're re-entering the atmosphere to power it too. So it's all in one combined re-entry and SpaceX program.
Well, they have the 3D printer, so you can make a whole bunch of stuff. Why don't we have a laser to destroy stuff in a very granular, specific way?
I really want to build that art installation now that like it's a conveyor belt going from a 3D printer to a laser that like follows the reverse path that was generated to build the 3D printed object and deconstructs it in the same pattern.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
So it uses like the same G code, but just run in reverse. So it destroys it in the same time and same pattern.
So this is what you're describing as a Turing machine, right? But with lasers and 3D printers.
I mean, you could build Turing machines out of like anything. Have some spare pencils lying around, Turing machine. Have some old Scotch tape, Turing machine. I mean, it's even got the tape.
Well, speaking of computery stuff, I see in the show notes that you've written down Mr. Robot best show or only show.
Correct. Have you seen Mr. Robot?
I've seen the first season. Though the season premiere for season 2 came out just before. Or earlier the week before we recorded this episode.
Correct.
I have not seen that. Have you? I'm assuming you did, and that's probably why it's on here.
Yes, so correct.
Sell me on season 2. Should I get back into it?
You mean season 1 didn't do a good enough job of selling you on season 2?
I'm more just trying to give you a leaping off point to talk about the show, but okay, we can move on. Next story.
Okay. I mean, I wanted to make sure that you're as on board with the show as I am before I end this podcast.
No, it's a good show. I don't know that it's necessarily one of my super faves, but I do enjoy it. It did feel like the sort of thing where I was sort of wondering how you have a season 2 for that show, though.
Very easily, but I won't spoil it. Okay, so let's just go back in time a little bit and talk about season 1.
Are you going to spoil season 1 for people that? Okay.
No. We're not going to spoil season 1. We're not going to spoil anything. Basically,
we will spoil your appetite.
Yes.
For podcast listening.
I don't really know why, but it will. We've had tests run on this segment because we're super prepared for this show now. And we know that this will spoil.
Exactly. We've been doing A/B testing. We've had user focus groups. Very, very expensive.
We're recording these podcasts like 3 years in advance now, so plenty of testing has gone into the show. You know, it is the optimal show.
Perfect Optimus show. Yes, exactly.
Correct. Anyway, Mr. Robot is this show that's set around a hacker group and their exploits to try to save the world. Yes, exactly. Their exploits to save the world as it is viewed by the main character and some of the other auxiliary characters. And what sort of brought the show into the limelight, so to speak, in sort of the circles that news forums and that type of stuff that Kevin and I frequent, is that it's very accurate in its portrayal of hacking. They use actual tools and they use actual methodologies to go through and show off how you would go and exploit a computer and gain access to people's personal information and do all sorts of crazy hackery things. And it's very much like the Breaking Bad of computers. I've told people like it. Like it's definitely trying to be. USA was like, we need a show like Breaking Bad, and this guy came up to them with a script, and it happened to be about computers, and they were like, okay, we'll make this the Breaking Bad.
No, I would totally describe this as computers meets Fight Club. Or hackers meets Fight Club, I guess.
Yes, but it's better.
But it's Fight better. Club? Fight Club is a very good movie, Alex.
Yeah, but Mr. Robot is a very good show. So you seem less enthusiastic about this show as I do. Why?
I think part of it is just general bias against. I feel like so I mean, in addition to there's sort of an attitude with when you want to portray bad characters that they have to have some crazy mental issues and drug issues, and that's the part that I'm sort of sick of. I'm kind of done with Requiem for a Dream. Like, I'm ready to be past. I'm ready to stop watching those types of portrayals. It didn't seem like it was bringing anything new to the table, and that portion of the show, which I think significant amount of the show kind of revolves around that sort of sub. What is it? I guess what would you call not a subplot, but a sub character? Like, like when you're trying to develop a character, there's some aspect to a character. I'm just like, there's nothing that it feels like we've sort of plumbed the depth of, like, here's some drugged out character with mental issues. And I don't feel like they're approaching that in any sort of novel light. So the rest of it, I'm on board. It's more just, we have to do this again. Okay, well, I'll take my I'll eat my vegetables, but.
Interesting. See, and that's definitely more of the path they're following through thus far in season 2. Is less. There have been notably less computery things and notably more character developments revolving around certain characters that have those mental issues. Right. And I think that's that's understandable, because I think you're right. There wasn't a ton of growth and room to move forward in the sort of computery realm. Although there has been some of that, but there definitely wasn't as much room to go forward in that aspect as there has been to go forward in sort of the character-driven aspects of the show. Right.
It's not to say that those can't be interesting subjects. I mean, even I want to say, let me think, Scrubs, I think, handled issues of drug abuse and issues of mental issues very, very, very well, creatively. Even though it's a show where you wouldn't think that really fits at all. But they managed to handle some stuff in just really, really moving in to my mind, at least, innovative ways. It's more just that I don't think Mr. Robot has approached it with anything new to say, at least yet, from what I've seen. I mean, in this second season, they really haven't been touching on any sort of drug issues. I think in these first 2 episodes, I've only seen the first 2 episodes of season 2. But well, I mean, there are only the 2, right? Thus far?
Yes.
Right. I just wanted to make sure this wasn't one. This wasn't like they were following the Netflix model of here's all of the things. Okay.
No. Unfortunately not. But we might not have time to record this podcast if it were true. But they're definitely diving very deep into the mental illness portion of the main character in specific. And which is something they'd set up at the end of the first season. Right. And I think it's a really cool thing. I have not seen other shows that have done. That's not technically true, but I don't think they've brought it to the forefront and made it such a critical component, as in other shows. The particular issue that is affecting the main character.
I guess one concern that I sort of have, it feels like, because. And this could just be sort of my perception of my echo chamber and stuff, but it feels like there are a lot of people suffering depression and anxiety and various levels of mental disorder. and that it has been, largely a taboo topic. And so I get a little bit nervous when I see portrayals of characters with mental issues that are not sympathetic in a way, or where it's easy to go like, oh, they're the villain, and obviously this is a core part of why they are that person. Because I wouldn't, not to say that the protagonist is the villain in Mr. Robot, but I think it's sort of, I mean, in the same way that V for Vendetta sort of flirts with the idea that the character's reasons for his actions are perhaps motivated through trauma or mental issues, and that I don't know, it feels like it's a subject that really could stand to be handled very, very carefully, and has pretty wide-reaching implications now, and I don't know. So it's a thing that sort of makes me nervous.
I'd be interested to hear what you had to say on the show. So maybe we'll come back and touch on once you've seen this new season, because I think that this new season really tackles the mental illness thing head on in sort of a way that I don't think it had in the first season. I mean, it definitely worked on it, but sort of all the cards got put on the table in the first season, and now we're kind of seeing how they work through those cards and what people's reactions to those cards, and particularly the protagonist's reaction to those cards. So I'd be kind of curious to see what have your thoughts develop.
Yeah, well, definitely we will. So maybe we'll come back. We will have to circle back on this. It's something I did want to watch it, and then I just forgot to go ahead and do that. Partially because I have been playing some more Pokemon Go. We talked a little bit about this on the beta episode of the podcast, which I don't know if we're treating as canon or whether people are actually supposed to listen to, but so Pokemon Go is still a thing, Alex.
It is.
I feel like, should we explain it for the like two people that I feel like anyone who's capable of finding our podcast?
You're correct. Anyone who's capable of breathing has heard about Pokemon Go. Well,
certainly has heard about Pokemon Go. There seem to be the two factions: the faction of people that are obsessively playing it, and then the faction of people that are obsessively tweeting and Facebook sharing about how obnoxious the game is.
So I don't know how much. I guess I must have a pretty good echo chamber, which is unfortunate because I've seen basically no one complaining about it. I've just seen people complaining about it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well curated.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Facebook is probably a lot of just people I know in real life. So that's not really curated. It's just if I've happened to met you in real life, you're probably on my Facebook that I never check. Right. But Twitter, I have extremely well curated because I only follow 100 people. So it has to be well curated because otherwise I'll wind up just following 100 brands and then I'll just always know when the good deals on toilet paper are, and that just sounds wonderful.
So have you been continuing to play Pokemon Go? How's your experience been?
I played it a lot last Saturday, and then I've kind of not played it as much during the week, partially because the servers have been so up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And partially because it's just been a busy week and I haven't necessarily felt like playing it on the subway as I kind of have. Right,
okay.
It works much better. Pokemon Go on a bus feels like cheating.
Yeah, it sounds like cheating. As someone who's walked around, it very much sounds like cheating, Alex.
I walked like 10 miles last Saturday and leveled from like level 8 to 11, almost 12. And caught, I like doubled the amount of Pokemon I saw. I walked like across Boston just for the fun of it. But I haven't really played it since then. And I don't really know why. And I don't know if it's the beginning of the end for me or if it's just... I have plans to go out with friends and play it tonight. So
when we last talked about the game, you had voiced your concern that that maybe, like other augmented reality games, that this would be kind of a flash in the pan type of thing where it's fun for a little bit.
Still might be.
Yeah.
It's I do still think that eventually it will fall apart. I just don't know when and how long that will be from now. I don't believe this can be around forever. it's a question of how long.
Well, I mean, nothing is around forever, but in terms of this won't have major staying power, is what you're saying.
Correct. It won't, like WoW. WoW is still around. World of Warcraft. It's been around forever. Right. And like has a fairly large, albeit now.
So is like Furcadia, apparently. The first graphical mud.
Furcadia?
Yes.
I have no idea what that is.
So do you know what muds are?
Well, it's when you mix dirt and
exactly, water. Correct. So it's the first graphical version of those.
Right.
No, muds were multiple user video games. Dampers. I don't know. I don't remember what it stands for.
Multi-user inertial dampers.
Yes, that would be MUDs. But no, the muds were basically they were IRC chats effectively, but you had it was multi-user text-based adventure games essentially.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Furcadia was kind of the first one that had a GUI on top of it, so it became basically it was a really, really, really bad version of Second Life or WoW or anything. And Alex is now tapping at the camera to try and get my attention. Yes, Alex. The chair recognizes Alex to speak.
No, sorry. I noticed those lines showing up, and last time when I hit my webcam, they went away. I don't know if it's my light or the webcam.
It's very likely. So yes, Alex was explaining before we started the show that he has LED lights everywhere, which basically means that I guess you have to retire as a camera using person, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, I just run at obnoxiously high frame rates, like 5,000 frames per second. That gets around the whole PWM issue.
Aha. Okay. Yeah, it's been. Have you tested out stuff with your cameras and seen?
Oh yeah, I've made a video. That was a test.
Oh, that's right, and that was that's in the new place. So I guess you're fine.
Yes, I have made one video in the new place, and it worked fine. Yeah, I do have LED lights in my softbox as well, but they're not PDO. They're not like dimmable or anything, so they work just fine with the camera.
Okay.
I think the softbox is enough of a fill light that it just fixes everything. I could turn it. Maybe I'll turn it on just for a little bit.
Well, good. I'm sure the listeners will very much appreciate it.
Yes, exactly. Don't you love listening to me look
exactly?
Better?
Well, I have an LED light that is mounted as well. That's on a Gorilla tripod mini thing that I could use as well if the listeners is still not. If it still doesn't look quite good enough for the listeners. But I did discover that basically after I treated my office, it retains heat a lot more than it used to.
I'm so sorry.
And there is no vent in this particular room because it really is more of a large walk-in closet off of a room.
So sorry.
And so basically whenever I have things closed off for recording, I'm just sort of cooking.
And this is the room you plan to spend like more than a third of your day in?
Well, it'll be much better once it's not the middle of summer, but also normally when I'm working, I don't have the curtain that seals us off from the rest of the of the apartment. So it's not really an issue. It's more that just when I'm recording and I want to make sure that there's not huge echoes from outside coming in, then it's just we're cooking around in here.
Good. All right. We were talking about Pokemon Go before I
and yes, Alex did share in the show notes an article from CNET. According to Dan Graziano, the company on Friday added a new filter to its website and mobile apps that allows gamers to easily locate businesses and other locations that are close to Pokestops.
Right. So if you want a sandwich and to catch Pokemon, you just go on Yelp and you select the filter close to a Pokestop. So
this seems kind of pretty directly related to your question of whether this is going to be a flash in the pan phenomenon, because there are a lot of people that are going to look really stupid if this game dies out next week.
Well, I don't think it'll be next week, but there are only 151 Pokemon in the game. They could add more, but most people really only care about the first 150, maybe the first 250, because nostalgia reasons. So there were two very popular, well, most iterations of Pokemon were very popular, but you notice like these fractions of people developing online, like who argue about which generation of Pokemon is better.
Okay.
Pokemon Go at the moment.
I'm going to go with the millennial Pokemon. That'd be my vote. Actually, isn't there? Wait, is the greatest generation of Pokemon?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just strictly like numbers 1 through 7 at this point.
Wow, well that seems very lazy. People are doing much better in the naming of generations department.
Yeah, I mean, people name these generations as well, so
there's a little bit of bias, but you know what? I haven't heard any Pokemon volunteer any names, so.
Really, I have. I mean, you don't talk to your Pokemon? But you're not playing Pokemon Go very well.
Yes, well, clearly.
I mean, mine talk to me all the time. I don't know what version of Pokemon Go you're playing. Oh, you're the Android version, right?
Yeah, that'd be why.
Inferior, okay. Yeah. So anyway, the current version of Pokemon Go only supports what are known as the first generation of Pokemon. These are the first 151 Pokemon that were available in the first 3 games, Pokemon Yellow, Blue, and Red. There's a second generation of Pokemon that were introduced in addition to those first 151 in the second round of games that came out for the Game Boy Color, specifically Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Okay. And then the third generation came out with Ruby and Sapphire, and then
none of those are colors. Those are minerals, Marie. Come on.
I mean, I bet they're Crayola crayons that are named that.
Well, okay, that fair enough. Them. Yes, if you can find a Crayola imprint with the thing, then it counts as a color.
Yeah, exactly. So on and so forth. And there are a lot of people. Most people who are into Pokemon can name a good chunk of the first generation of Pokemon, a fair chunk of the second generation, an okay chunk of the third,
and then the Voyager and Deep Space Nine Pokemon are just who knows.
I'm specifically referring to people who are into Pokemon who are also my age, about 22. Okay. When the people who are younger are more attached to, say, the third generation of Pokemon because that was the one that they had and were playing at the same time I was playing the older games. So I think there's a lot of older people who are attached to Pokemon. Like, I think the younger generation is going to play any of the Pokemon games. But as the generations tick onwards, I think you're going to find that people closer to our ages aren't going to have the same nostalgia effect and are going to start to fall off.
So it seems like what you're saying, or at least what you're suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the big draw for this game is not so much the mechanics of the game at all, but it really is very heavily dependent on the property.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is basically just skinned ingress. There are some different mechanics that I think are more compelling.
The gyms are skinned ingress, and the gyms are boring as heck.
Yes.
The rest of the game, I think, is novel, and I think it's the part that most people are playing for.
Well, I think the most novel bit of it is the catching of Pokemon. Right. So I think.
But if you were to have to collect Digimon instead, would the game?
Right. Yeah, I don't think the game would be anywhere near as popular if you replaced the Pokemon with Digimon.
Okay.
I honestly do not. And I think people are going to be less incentivized to try and go out and catch them all when they don't care about the Pokemon, when it's like Wingull or Wailord or, moving on.
Is he like Lord of all of the whales? Because that sounds awesome.
Wailord is
that'd be like one of those 50-kilometer eggs.
There are many Wailords. There's more than one.
Is there like a council of lords of the whales?
Yes, and they can travel.
Are you sure it's not like Welsh Lord?
I'm very certain.
Are you positive? Okay.
I did. It's part of the third generation of Pokemon, which I still know somewhat well. I can't really name you a fourth generation Pokemon. I can name some from the third generation. Okay. But at one point I had the first generation Pokerap memorized. And Weird Al actually has his own called the Polka Rap, which is his own version of the Poker Rap, except with an accordion, and it's awesome.
Well, naturally.
So I heartily recommend you go and listen to the Polka Rap by Weird Al.
Well, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Give me a prediction. When does this game die? When does the news cycle give up on it? When do people stop playing it en masse?
En masse? I don't really. It depends on how quickly they can catch all the Pokemon, or they stop running into new Pokemon. Because I don't really see the benefit and the draw of playing this game when you're not out there looking for new Pokemon, because when you've caught all the Pokemon, to me, it just feels like Ingress, right? Like, I guess that's the only point. That's the point where it's better than Ingress. So once you've sort of finished the part that's better than Ingress,
well, yes,
you move on.
Right.
Then it's just Ingress. So it depends on how quickly they add new Pokemon. I know I'm coming up on about half the catalog that's out so far. So I've caught, I think, around 60, and half the catalog's about 75. How about you?
Well, let me go ahead and pull it up right now, because I don't think it's anything close. I want to say something like 30.
Okay. See, I have the benefit of living in one of a major city, and we have like a large selection of Pokemon all over the place. Like, it's a fairly dense. Yeah,
I mean, well, so around me there are a bunch of Pokestops. There are a bunch of overlapping Pokestops that people will throw lures on all over the place. But as far as variety, there is not much.
And see, that's the thing.
I don't know. I guess Boston, you've got the Rainforest District of Boston. You've got the Coastal District of Boston. You've got the Desert District of Boston. So you can just go to all of the biomes.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, we do. Yeah, that's essentially it. We also have one of the most detailed maps of where the Pokemon are anywhere.
That's just cheating.
Well, I haven't used it.
Oh, right. Okay.
I seriously, I haven't. I actually can't even look at it. I'm looking for the article.
Is it because your eyesight is too good? What is?
Yes. No, you have to request to be allowed to view and this.
Okay, so I have caught 33 Pokemon, and I have seen 34. Because there was a Magikarp that I saw on day one and did not manage to catch. Oh, but look, a Rattata-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta.
So you don't know how many Magikarp you need to evolve into a Gyarados? Do you want to know the number of Magikarp you have to catch?
It'd be 100, wouldn't it? Well, 101 if you count the source one.
Yes. Okay. So you do know that. So, but you didn't catch the Magikarp.
I didn't catch it, no, but it's in my Pokedex.
Oh. Okay.
And I just caught another Rattata-ta-ta-ta. Alex, this is amazing. Good. Hooray. Another freaking rat thing.
The area around my house is filled almost entirely with a Pokemon called Drowsy.
Oh, see, I've been trying to catch some Drowsy because I still don't have enough to evolve a Drowsy.
I can probably evolve a Drowsy every day if I just am playing the game near my house.
Oh yeah, I can do that with the Weedles and the Rattats. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a Beedrill then?
I have many Beedrills.
I am jealous. A lot of people consider Beedrill to be their favorite Pokemon.
Why?
I don't know. They're crazy.
Okay.
I just know. So the people I know more than one person who considers Beedrill to be their favorite Pokemon.
See, the weird thing for me, and I'm sure this is, and I know this is just a matter of they were trying to be authentic with the way that the games used to be. But if it were me, I would be like, take all of the Pokemon that were good enough that you ended up putting them into things like Super Smash Brothers, make those the super rares that you're never going to find. Make Pikachu like the number 150 of Pokemon that you will ever catch.
Okay.
Because I have a Pikachu and I'm like, well, that means I win, right? That means I beat the game. Hooray for me. Like, I hatched one. I'm like, I guess I'm done.
Oh, you hatched it? Okay, that's how you got it. I was looking. I went off and I was looking using the weird radar system for a Pikachu. And I couldn't find it. I haven't quite figured out how the radar system works well enough to be able to track down. Yeah,
people seem
Pokemon.
To suggest ways that it works, and I'm like, that maybe that's true for you, but that's certainly not what's going on my end.
Yeah, I don't know. I just haven't.
And then even once you get a Pikachu, you eventually got to evolve it into not Pikachu, and who wants to do that?
Well, there's some purists who wouldn't ever evolve their Pikachu.
I mean, that's me. Basically, I will only evolve Pikachu if I can make sure that I still keep another Pikachu.
Right, but there are some people who will never evolve a Pikachu because that was a huge plot point in the anime that like Pikachu didn't want to be evolved or whatnot.
Oh, so he was a creationist? Moving on. So Alex, you have posed a question in the show notes. Do I own the moon? I'm assuming that you mean I in the me sense. And you say spoilers. Yeah. So according to an article on space.com, which I love, yes. I love the wide variety of places that you go for news for the show.
I mean, I find compelling headlines that I think would be entertaining to talk about on the show. They just happen to often come from space.com.
But yeah, so summarizing the Outer Space Treaty, Elizabeth Howell on space.com says, space is free for all nations to explore. Well, she probably says it in a slightly higher voice. Space is free for all. I don't know.
What are you doing?
I don't. Maybe she has an accent. Doing? Space is.
Give her an Australian accent.
Space is free for all nations to explore, and sovereign. No, I can't. I can't manage to pull it off.
Give her a Ukrainian accent.
I don't even know what the Ukraine. I mean, it's Russian, right? So space is free for all nations to explore, and sovereign claims cannot be made. Space activities must be for benefit of all nations and humans. Ergo, nobody on moon.
Well, yes. So everyone who signed that treaty has agreed to that. I have not signed such a treaty.
You do fund a state that has signed that treaty.
Yeah, but I don't acknowledge it. I haven't signed it.
Well, I mean, it is an interesting point because this was raised at some point, the idea of whether, in the same way, I think with Antarctica, and that yes, countries have said no, we can't claim, and so companies are like, cool, I claim this. This is now Applelandia.
Yep. And the U.S. has ruled that corporations are people. I am a people, therefore I am also a corporation, and therefore I can claim the moon.
I think that's a logical fallacy, Alex. All corporations are people does not necessarily imply that all people are corporations.
Yes, it does. That's clearly what that means.
Well, and the U.S. did say that companies were able to reap the benefits of mining asteroids. Now, they were not able to claim ownership of asteroids or parts of asteroids, but they do own the resources from mining those. So I'm confused because if someone came back and was like, hey, do you want to buy an asteroid? I'd be like, yeah, I will pay you money for an asteroid. So to me, asteroid is a resource. So now I'm very confused.
It means you could just take an electric drill up to the moon, drill into the surface and say, oh, look, I found a moon. This was the resource I mined from the moon. Well, and
also, once you get an asteroid down, doesn't that become a meteor?
I mean...
Like if it's returned to Earth, I don't believe it's an asteroid anymore.
Well, come to Earth, not returned.
You don't know, man.
Well, I don't know, but you also don't know. And I think statistically speaking, it would be
statistically speaking, a fair number of the items in the asteroid belt are fragments of the proto-Earth.
Yes, but there are statistically speaking far more that came from other planets.
Statistically speaking, pi, standard distribution, induction, E, and natural log.
What?
Ergo, I win.
Can you explain that, please?
I'm just statistically speaking.
I mean, how many other planets are there besides Earth?
3.
From which 3? Oh, it's reduced further still. So we've thrown out all the exoplanets, and we've also thrown out which other planets?
Well, I mean, if they were planets, then they wouldn't need to be exoplanets. So obviously,
okay. So we have the Earth. I'm assuming is still a planet.
Until that convention of planetologists demotes it.
So what are the other 3? What are the other 3 planets?
Well, proto-Earth. From before.
Okay, so proto-Earth.
And future Earth.
Future Earth, and what's the other?
No, those are
one?
3.
You said 3 other planets.
No, I said 3 planets.
I'm pretty certain you said 3 other, but whatever. So, past Earth, current Earth, and future Earth compose all the planets in the known universe.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. No, they also comprise all the planets in the unknown universe as well. Oh, see, normally I have to be the straight man for your antics in this podcast, and so I'm just going to try and be as ridiculous as possible on this story because,
all right. Excellent.
Otherwise, we have to wade into the legalese of countries and planets and moons and things.
I just wanted to establish it within the podcast canon that I own the moon. That was the whole point of that.
And I don't understand what about that made you think that I would remotely go along with that claim.
Because I would give you a nice moon property that you could sell.
No, I tell you what, I will split it with you 50-50. I want the far side of the moon so that I don't have peeping Toms.
You know what? All the valuable property is going to be on the near side. So sure,
all right, there we go. I will own the far side of the moon. You can own the near side of the moon. Excellent. But, when people are peeking through your living room window with their telescopes, don't come complaining to me.
You can't do that. Even the Hubble Space Telescope can't even see the remnants of the Apollo.
Alex, it's going to take you a few years to establish your moon colony. They'll build better telescopes by then, all right? Technology is remarkable and is expanding very quickly.
Yes, but the laws of physics aren't, so I'm going to go out on a limb.
The laws of physics are improving. We are refining them. How dare you, Alex? Every physicist just raised his fist in ire. Or her fist in ire.
The laws of optics haven't really changed much.
I will have to take your word for it on that one. I don't know.
Okay. Cool. So that's that. So Kevin and I have split the moon into twain.
Wow. We're split. So we're not like, you don't want to be neighbors?
No. I don't. Yeah, no. I'm going to detach your half of the moon.
Okay.
We'll float, we'll put some sort of steel girders or something and a bridge.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
bridge guards.
Well, and the other convenient thing about splitting it the way that we did is that it means that we split the lunar ice caps. So as far as oxygen, we're equally either good or bad depending on how much turns out to be.
Also, if there's enough oxygen, we could blow up the moon. So that'd be fun.
That is true. Though you'd have to imagine, the moon is pretty. The moon has to be pretty bored. If it could have imploded by now.
No, not imploded.
Well, either one. If it could have found any way, just stir things up a little bit, it probably would have at this point.
Are you suggesting that the moon might be bored enough to commit suicide?
I am.
Is that what
I'm saying? After several. I mean, this is the big question of of eternal life. After a few billion years, don't you go?
But it's not eternal life. Eventually, the sun will blow up. You got to know that'll happen. I suppose,
but man, that's going to be a long wait, and it's pretty boring being the moon.
Are you sure? Have you been the moon before?
You know what? I can't recall.
So, okay. So you believe that in the past?
Yes, in a past life, I may have been a moon. So,
okay, all right.
This is why I carry so much ennui into my current existence. It's from all of the boredom of having once had to suffer through the misery of being a moon for billions of years.
Okay, excellent. I think we've covered this.
I think this episode is going really, really well.
I agree. I enjoyed this episode immensely.
Also, there are some stories that we actually really should cover. The first one that I want to jump into really quickly is Elon Musk's secret plan. I need to mention this because we can't really talk about it. Okay. So Elon Musk, Elon Musk released a secret plan back several years ago.
Yes.
And to summarize, it's available up on TeslaMotors.com on their blog. He summarizes it as: build sports car, use that money to build an affordable car, use that money to build an even more affordable car, while doing above also provides zero emission electric power generation options. Don't tell anyone. So that is his secret plan.
That he published for all to see.
Exactly. And it really kind of has been the driving principle behind Tesla, is that because people did ask, why are you making a flashy sports car? If you really care about the environment, why wouldn't you try and build something that everybody could get? He said, well, this is the secret plan. Now he did.
It's a really brilliant plan, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'd just rather people don't use cars. But anyway, he did tweet out that he was going to release The Secret Plan Part 2 the end of this week. We are recording this on a Saturday, and I discovered that yesterday he tweeted out, Sunday is the end of this week. So...
I don't really know what basis. Is there a calendar basis for Sunday being the end of the week?
I believe Sunday was always considered to be the first day of the... Well, no, the seventh day. On the seventh day he rested. So, yeah, right, there you go. Yes. Seventh day being the Sabbath.
There's a biblical foundation. So, this proves that Elon Musk is
deeply religious.
Protestant. He's at some level a Protestant.
So, I guess the only thing that we really can talk about, and I'm curious, as our token rampant speculator, Alex...
Oh, good. Our first entry into the amphitheater of future predictions.
Well, I have to ask you, what do you expect is going to be on this Secret Plan Part 2?
Well, it's going to be buy Solar City. That's going to be probably the first line of Secret Plan. Use money. It's I think it's going to be about solar technology. It's going to be a similar plan as cars, except for solar production. I think this is going to be why he wants to buy Solar City. It's going to be buy Solar City, sell expensive solar panels, use profits from expensive solar panels,
sell luxury solar panels, use the luxury solar panels to develop a line of upper middle class solar panels,
and then use the money to develop cheaper solar panels. That's sort of the outline of what I think. Realistically speaking, I think it's going to also depend a lot on battery production.
Right.
Because this is something that Tesla actually has a really interesting market control over, and that is really good batteries.
Which is weird because, I mean, when they announced the big home battery bank thing, a lot of people did mention, like, hey, Elon, you have another company whose job it is to, like, worry about solar power and exactly this type of home grid type of thing. So it's kind of weird that Tesla is the place where you launch this.
He was showing his hand. It makes sense, though, to have everything under sort of one umbrella. Because I remember, I think it may have been Elon or someone else talking about it, that potentially you could use your electric car as sort of your home backup battery in case of power loss. And so imagine if, like, you go out for the day, you're driving around, it doesn't quite work because the sun is unfortunately placed in that it's not in the sky at night. So
that is very unfortunate. If only the sun were there at night also.
Right. I mean, so ideally what you do
you could move to, like, Alaska, Alex.
You could.
Or Longyearbyen in Norway.
I think I'd rather just flip the work day so that you go to work at night and sleep during the day.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
So you go out, you drive your car around during the day, and then you come home and you plug it in, and you plug it into your solar array, but the sun's already gone down, so it doesn't really make a ton of sense. But imagine, like, you were out driving around during the day, you came home sort of the tail end of the evening, you topped up your car because, you know, it's not that far to work for you. I mean, this all depends on work use case, really. And then so, like, you have a power failure. Oh, and so your home just starts cycling power out of the car, and then presumably do some sort of limited set point so that way you could still drive to work during the day.
So the only problem that I have, I mean, I don't doubt that you could be right about this. The only thing that I really dislike about it is that I feel like if Elon's whole thing is like, hey, let's make the world a better place, hooray. I don't think that car ownership is a part of an idealized future. I think that maybe...
I don't think he thinks that
I think
either,
Uber's owning Teslas is a great idea. And I think eventually us kind of cutting back on urban sprawl and sort of reversing that trend is a good idea.
Oh. Yeah, I'm just now thinking I might be wrong.
Like basically, if we build some sort of futuristic world where car ownership is, basically you own this battery that can drive you and itself around, and that's kind of the core of the I guess the white picket fence house of the future. That would make me rather nervous.
Okay. So building on top of that idea, I have now a new alternative for what his secret.
I'm going to
plan
ask
might
you
be.
for like bookie style odds on all of these, by the way.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have a bookie hat, but I'll get some duct tape. So there was, when the Model 3, which is the new car this is the cheapest car that Tesla's putting out yet,
right,
was announced. They said this is only part 1 of the announcement. There will be a second part coming on later in this year.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the secret plan part 2 and the part 2 of the Model 3 announcement are intricately related. In that, if
self-driving boats?
No, self-driving cars.
Well, I mean, aren't these already self-driving cars?
But not really. They're not fully autonomous cars yet. The Model 3 is conceivably, it is possible, it has been rumored, that the Model 3 would be sort of exit-to-exit autonomous.
Okay.
Meaning, when you get on an exit at a highway, you, like at launch, it would be
you presumably get on an entrance to a highway rather than an exit.
Yeah, well, right. I guess, technically. But you
it's always good to be technical, Alex. You, of all people, should appreciate this.
I do, but I technically, you do get on at an exit.
No, you get on an
highway vernacular. An on-ramp at exit 35. So we got on at exit 35.
No, you got on an entrance 75, 35.
But no one says that.
I say it, Alex. I say it. I just said it. Just said it. Do I need to play it back to you?
Sure, do it right now.
I kind of do want to get like one of those sound banks and stuff for the podcast. That'd be a lot of fun, but probably not worth the investment.
Just program one. Just program one. Anyway, so the theory is that at launch, the Model 3 will be able to do, highway to on-ramp to off-ramp travel without requiring the human to hold the wheel. Now, there may be legal problems with this, and that we might talk about later on in this podcast. Maybe. But the car would technically be able to do it and be ready to go as soon as the laws were in place to drive from on-ramp to off-ramp. And then a few years down the line, be fully ready to go door-to-door autonomously. And this would be one of the selling points for the
Elon's
Model 3.
announcement would be like, hey, all of you that pre-ordered Model 3s, we're actually not going to sell them to you. We're just going to keep all of them, but you can use them whenever you want. We'll pick you up and drop you off wherever the heck you want to go.
Well, and see, that may be the thing. Maybe the secret plan part 2 is release autonomous car. Part 2, lease autonomous car. Right? It could be a sequence of steadily more autonomous cars.
Right.
That could be the foundation for.
Well, I mean, it sort of does make sense, especially if you're a company that has, you have your own separate Tesla charging stations. I think it certainly makes sense to go, maybe we're also going to be the Uber for Tesla. Tesla's going to do its own Uber. It's not going to go, ship that. It's not going to go have the taxi service type of stuff delegated to some other company. If you want to have the tight integration, it probably makes sense because then you as Tesla, the status of all of your cars, when some of them need to be, brought off the road to recharge or for repair or whatever. And you can, manage all of that yourself, which probably is more efficient.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't know if the CEO of Uber will be happy with that, but I absolutely agree.
The stories that I've heard, I'm not particularly concerned about hurting the feelings of the CEO of Uber.
I really know nothing about him. I mean, I heard he was pretty crazy, but other than that, I haven't really heard anything.
We've been dancing around this topic for a little bit, but this is a story we really should cover. And we've written this, the Tesla murder.
Not really.
Well, yeah. So, yes, there has now been a death with a Tesla car that was in self-driving mode, or I don't know if that's technically the term, but according to Tesla's press release, the vehicle was on a divided highway with the autopilot engaged when a tractor-trailer drove across the highway perpendicular to the Model S. Neither the autopilot nor the driver noticed the white side of the tractor-trailer against a brightly lit sky, so the brake was not applied.
So, first question I have for you, and I couldn't find a concrete answer to this. Was the man driving this car watching Harry Potter at the time of the incident?
What? That is a very specific thing to be watching. So I think I'm probably safe to say no. Just given that if he's watching anything, there's probably a large variety of things.
Okay. I'm going to find an article. I couldn't find any follow-up articles on this. That stated that the man who was driving this car, which was in autopilot, and we should mention that when you turn on autopilot, it has like this big warning thing that says like you need to still be paying attention and have your hands on the wheel and be ready to steer away from oncoming traffic. But so after this came out, there's like a bunch of articles from Electric, which is a blog that talks a lot about electric cars and specifically Tesla, that says there was a claim that a portable DVD player was found at the crash of the. I did
think I heard that.
And the truck driver had said he heard the Harry Potter movie when he like got out of the truck after the crash. So there.
It's Ratcliffe's fault, is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, we shouldn't joke. I mean, this is a very unfortunate thing to have happen.
But like when you turn on autopilot, it does tell you that this is a beta software. Please, please, please keep control of your car. Right. And then this guy potentially was ignoring that. And there haven't been a follow-up or confirmation article that has come out. I mean, these articles are a couple weeks old at this point. I couldn't find any confirmation that he was in fact actually watching Harry Potter, but it's very possible that he might have been.
And it's also important to point out that it's not entirely clear, at least from the reports that I saw, it's not clear that even if he had been paying perfect attention, that this couldn't have still happened. That basically because the trailer was bright white and against some very bright sky, that there wasn't enough reaction time for either the machine or the person to notice and respond correctly.
Well, so I don't believe it was a response time issue for the Tesla. I believe it was a sensor placement issue. So on the current Model S, there are sensors on the front of the car that can see things in front of it, but they're not angled upwards very much. So tractor trailer trucks are quite tall, and you can see quite a bit underneath them, and they're very sparsely populated underneath. And so the car was probably just looking underneath the tractor trailer and thought everything was fine. But the top of the roof of the car scraped into the bottom of the tractor trailer truck. And there just aren't sensors configured to watch that specific area on the Model S. Presumably that's going to be one of the things they're going to be addressing in the Model 3 is having a much more accurate sensor map. In fact, Elon's been tweeting recently about rebuilding their whole sensor configuration to be able to basically build a sparse point particle cloud around the car.
So here's the thing that sort of shocks me, and it just sort of brought it home that now that the story kind of went out there. It seems weird to me, and this isn't even just a Tesla thing. There are cars by traditional auto manufacturers that can that can parallel park or do trivial things like that. The idea that sort of technology just kind of happened. I mean, I remember back when there was the race across the desert with all of the college students building
the Great Robot Race.
Yes, the Great Robot Race, where everybody was trying to build cars. This is what I was
talking about in the beta episode.
So they were doing all that, and then there were all the news stories about so maybe in 20 years we'd have the good technology, and then it would take 20 years for us to get legislation so they could be on the roads and things like that. It seems weird to me that we already have self-driving stuff on the roads now. There was never any sort of big congressional fight. We didn't have this big legal battle or anything to get this stuff approved. Just Tesla's oh, by the way, these self-drive now, so we're just going to turn that feature on for you. And it's true with the other cars with the parallel parking and stuff. Obviously, those are, to a lesser extent. The idea that this is something that just sort of happened seems weird to me.
Well, and I think it's based mostly around the fact that the car tells you that you're still ultimately in control and pay attention and keep your hand on the wheel. Like, it's an assist feature rather than. But that seems kind of like, well, yeah, your 3-year-old can drive if it's in a driver's ed vehicle and you've got another person in the secondary driver's seat. Like, it seems weird to me that the Tesla autopilot didn't have to go through some like licensing thing. It just doesn't exist. There is no national standard for that. I don't know. You would think that it would, you'd have to take the Tesla to the DMV and be like, all right, well, we're going to grade you now. But it's not being evaluated as a driver. It's a driver assist technology. I think that's the gray line it skates under. That seems assisted, and that seems instead of autonomous. I can sort of understand that with things like parallel parking. I don't find that defensible. Right, but there is no legal line. Oh yeah, no, I know. I'm just what is more just, and isn't. It seems to me like this stuff is in the market sooner than it has a legal right to be. Maybe, and more so that I'm wondering. Is that going to change? Are we going to have like a bunch of Senate people filibustering about blah, 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 blah? And in particular, if we have more of these types of accidents, is it going to prompt a big legal response? Because if that is the case, and if things were kind of rushed to market without getting a sufficient legal backbone, then the legal response could really, really, really slow everything down, right? So, I mean, if the government has to be reactionary about self-driving technology, it's going to be much more problematic than if Tesla was more proactive about getting legislation in place. I believe there have already been Senate hearings in the past, like prior to this incident, about self-driving technologies, and there have been directives for the DMV and like the NTS or the TSA self-driving cars, the little safe driving carts that they can ride from terminal to terminal. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but there have been directives that definitely the DMV and certainly some other federal organizations are rapidly working to develop those sort of standards for self-driving cars. Right. And I think there are certain ones that there are certain milestones that have to be met even by the end of this year. So I think the government is definitely trying to play catch up with the industry at the moment, but they're not doing so in a reactionary method yet. Right. Will they do a reactionary step? I hope not, because I agree that it would slow the whole process down, and would introduce sort of a period that could be fairly tumultuous for the whole industry going forward. But presumably there's some margin where, like, if you get this far, like if the market goes too far ahead of where legislation is caught up to, then they'll have no choice to be reactionary about it, right? I agree. I'm hopeful that like Tesla understands that enough to not release a fully autonomous car before it has government approval to do so. Right. Because that would be bad, and I really hope they don't do that. I'm really hoping that they sort of work with their Congress people. Well, I mean, the reason I ask though is that I do think that simply telling the driver that they need to continue to pay attention. I mean, obviously there are some aspects of the car. If you take your hands off the wheel, it will yell at you, and if you don't put your hands back on the wheel, it will eventually slow down and stop. So there are protections against physical inactivity, but I think expecting a human driver to remain as mentally active when the car is doing all the work, I think that's a lovely thought, but I think it's a sort of thing where I would not be surprised to see more. If the car is not technically capable of operating in situations of inattentive with an inattentive driver, then I don't think it should be on the road. Because I think that you are going to have more and more people who are inattentive, and if they continue to do this, and then they continue to kind of enable that,
then they do run the risk of having the government have to crack down and go like, nope, all right, you've jumped too far ahead in this plan. This isn't okay.
Yeah, it is going to be sort of a large debate, and this is the precipice of this very large debate about what is an acceptable. Like we know from a century of driving what humans' safety records are. The Tesla, even with this current death, has like a twice as good safety rating. So what is
but also a sample size of one is not a good sample size.
Well, yes and no. It's a sample size of hundreds and hundreds of people who are all driving with this autonomous
I'm
feature.
just saying that this is still the same as trying to look at the safety record of the space shuttle. Like there's never going to be it's really hard to compare those numbers with other numbers.
I suppose. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but I wouldn't say the sample size is one. Like the incident rate is one.
But an incident rate of one, I don't think is enough to be like, oh, well, clearly it's one in this many.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, but we're gonna have to have a legal definition for what is an acceptable safety rating. Like if a car goes below what threshold, when do we pull it? When do we say like you have to turn off your autonomous systems? You're too dangerous. Right. Like, is there going to be an accounting for that? Is it going to be a one-time test? Like, what happens when a software update lowers the safety rating? What happens when like the car malfunction? Like, how many malfunctions is a car allowed to have that aren't related to the software? How many are the hardware allowed to have?
Right.
What is a car going to do when it's facing one of those weird, like, trollology situations of morality? Is it better to save the driver and kill two people? Or is it better to kill the driver and save two people? Like, there's actually going to have to be a legal definition for what the car should do in those instances.
Oh, I really don't like that idea. Codifying ethics seems very weird to me.
But you have to. You have to.
No, I mean, I don't think you do. I think basically if you can demonstrate that you don't kill as many people as cars, then they can be like, yeah, it's the manufacturer's decision whether to how they want to solve the trolley problem. We're just gonna not. Well, okay. We're just not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, okay, but at some stage, someone has to actually write that into the code of the car, and someone has to make that call.
Right.
So Elon Musk will definitely be making that decision.
Right. And well, I mean, certainly this is not a new problem. If you go and I don't know, if you randomly decide, like I did one time, to just go and read all the Wikipedia articles on all of the airplane accidents that have ever happened.
Why would you do that?
It's interesting. Like it's genuinely fascinating.
But why? How
it doesn't make it easier to fly, but it's genuinely fascinating. But you do have these cases of like, okay, well, if we go down here, what are you are balancing these different risks and having these various trolley problem like situations. And so it's not a new problem, and and the government didn't have to pass a law about, if your plane is broke, you need to base this risk assessment on according to these principles.
You can say use your best judgment. You can't say that to a car. Like, the car is programmed to do a thing. It does not have judgment. Whereas a pilot,
you just have one of those deep neural nets, and so then you don't even really know until the accident happens what it's going to pick. So then everyone is indemnified. The company didn't know which it would choose. The developer didn't know which it would choose. The government didn't know.
You might as well just have it roll a die.
Well, there you go.
Like, so that's your solution to the trolley problem. Roll a die.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, really it's not really a terrible thing. So the trolley problem really is the idea that there's
should we probably explain?
Yeah, I'm just saying. So a train is going down a track and it's going to run over a person. Now you have the ability to flip a switch, and it will be diverted to a side rail in which it will run over two people. Or there are a million different variants of, if you put this, if people that you hate or certain ratios of people or things like that.
Well, I mean, there are a million different variants, but the base variant I've always heard is it's hurtling towards a track with two people on it, and there's one person on the other.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
Right. So you could interact and lower the total casualty, but then you've directly interacted to kill someone.
Right.
Or you could not interact and it'll kill two people, but you're decoupled from the system. Or are you decoupled from the system? Right? Like that's the whole moral question. Like if it was headed towards one person and there was a track where it would kill two people, then I don't think that's as interesting a question.
Oh, right. No, so it's a question of kind of passive versus active choices and culpability and that sort of thing. And there are many people that would say that it is acceptable to divert the track and kind of actively, assist in the loss of one person. But of course, if you extend that out to other situations, there's a twist on that doctors in a hospital and there are 3 patients that all need one organ transplant. And then he sees that there's a healthy person in the waiting room. Is it morally acceptable for the doctor to murder the healthy person in the waiting room to save the 3 lives? Assuming perfect organ transplantation, nobody thinks that that's okay. And yet in the trolley problem, where they are effectively the same problem, just with different trappings that we have. So it's less of a discussion about, it's more of what our general moral sense is. It's used mainly as an example to go like, hey, isn't this weird that we all kind of intuitively feel certain ways toward these problems, even though it doesn't necessarily make logical sense?
Well, and I would argue the difference between those two, not to get into deep philosophical debates, I would argue the difference between those two is that the healthy person in the waiting room is decoupled from the system in the way that a person standing on a train track isn't. Right, like he's a person who's external to the system that would then be brought into the system, versus if you're standing on a train track, you're sort of inherent to the system.
I mean, okay, then make it a patient who's in for some outpatient procedure or something that is going to be totally fine. He's going to make a full recovery, but he's someone in a coma that's likely to make a full recovery. Yeah, so make it a fourth patient that's just comatose, but otherwise is fine. Are you allowed to take that person off of life support and use those organs? That sort of thing. Either way, we intuitively have a feeling of, no, you couldn't possibly do that. That'd be very, very wrong. And yet with the trolley problem, we think, it's perfectly fine to divert the track to save more lives. Not necessarily. People kind of vary as to whether they feel that you have responsibility to, but generally most people would say, you are well within your right to do that. You certainly wouldn't fault anyone for doing that. Whereas, if you took the 4th person in the hospital off of life support just to harvest their organs for the 3 people,
you'd be in jail.
Right.
You would be in jail.
Not okay. Right. Exactly. Anyway, I think we've rambled on quite a bit for this podcast. I want to thank Alex Bragdon for joining me. Alex, do you have any last words? Do you have any last words? I don't know what I'm doing. We're trying to be a little bit more organized.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Wow. Very, very deep. No, we are trying to be a little bit more organized with the podcast, hoping to eventually get this stuff up on SoundCloud and YouTube and other places, everywhere where podcasts are sold. For free. Remember to click like if you like this video and subscribe if you love this video. Those don't apply here, Alex, but I appreciate the effort. Okay, rate us on iTunes if you like this video. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Yes, give us an iTunes review. Play. Oh, that was something that happened while we were away. We're on Google Play now, in case you have an Android device. If you do listen to your podcast on Google Play, which nobody does, even people with Android devices. But if you're weird, let us know. And I hope we didn't just alienate you away. We probably did.